Now let's understand the WebDriver concept. Selenium is a browser automation tool, right? So what does that mean? So whatever operations that the user perform on different browsers like Chrome, Safari or Firefox, the Selenium can mimic the same operations over there. So Selenium can automate the user operations on different browsers. That's what Selenium does. Okay, so Selenium has to deal with different browsers, right? We'll be writing Java code using Selenium library, and our code, when it is executed, it has to act upon different browsers. But here the thing is, different browsers are provided by different players in the market. Chrome comes from Google, Safari is provided by Apple, whereas Firefox is developed by Mozilla, right? So different companies develop the browsers in different ways. So how do you communicate with different browsers? Are you going to write different code for dealing with different browsers? That's going to be very painful, right? So there has to be a common way of communicating with different browsers. So we'll be writing one piece of code, and when you execute the code, it should be communicating with different browsers. How can we achieve that? For achieving this, each browser provides a program called driver. So this driver can accept commands from Selenium or any browser automation tool, and this program driver can convert it into the corresponding format of each browser. So for example, Chrome provides a driver program called Chrome driver. Okay, Safari provides Safari driver, and Firefox provides Firefox driver. So what these drivers do is it will accept the commands in the same format. That means using Selenium and in your Java code or whatever language that you use, you can provide the same command to different drivers. So it is the responsibility of the driver program to convert it into its native command set of the corresponding browser. So say for example, you are giving a command to launch browser. So the Chrome driver, if you are giving it to Chrome driver, it will convert it into a format that Chrome understands. So next time if you need to change your browser to Safari, what you need is a Safari driver. You have to get a driver for Safari so that this driver will convert it into a format that Safari understands. Okay. Likewise, for each browser, there has to be a driver, and this driver will take care of converting your commands into a format that each browser understands. So your life is easy. You just need to write your code, one piece of code, and when that is executed, what you need is you just change the driver of the corresponding browser so that it will take care of communicating with the corresponding browsers in its native format. So that's the relevance of the driver. So now, for each browser, there are drivers available. So how do you manage all these drivers? Do you need to download all these drivers and keep it and then change it, right? So the one problem here is sometimes, there are new versions of different drivers coming up, right? So because you get the updates from different browsers. So you'll have to download different drivers as well and manage it. So that's going to be painful. It's okay. So let us leave this task of managing all these drivers into another library. So that's the reason why we added a dependency WebDriver Manager, right? So we added a Boni Garcia library WebDriver Manager. So that library will take care of managing all these drivers. So we'll set up the driver with the help of WebDriver Manager, and that will take care of all these driver setup. So we don't need to worry about these drivers, and we can focus on coding in Selenium, and we'll be able to communicate with different browsers. So let's see how we can do that. Now let's start writing code for launching a browser, okay, and then navigate into our application. So we'll start with one browser. We'll be using Chrome, and then we will move on to different browsers later. So let's create a new branch, a feature branch, and let's work on it. So let's create new branch, and let's name it as launch browser. Okay, maybe browser launch. Let's leave this tick mark selected so that we'll check out into this new branch. Now we created a new branch and we'll be working on this branch. So you can see the current working branch here, right? So we checked out into this branch, browser launch. All right. So now we have the dependencies over here. This is the dependency that we just talked about, like the WebDriver manager dependency. Okay, so this will help us to organize the drivers for different browsers. Okay, I'm going to make a slight change here. You can see this dependency tag. I'm going to move it after the properties. Okay, I mean, the order doesn't matter, but usually we add all these dependencies after properties. Okay, so I'm going to take the entire properties tag, the opening and closing tag, and I'm going to move it after properties. There you go. Okay, and whenever you make any change, you will get these load name and changes button. You can click it. Well, now let's go to the Explorer. Okay, and let's work on the code. So let's write code for launching the browser, right? So we'll be working under test, okay, because we are working with test automation, right? So it's under test Java, and let's create a new package named test. So we'll be adding all our tests under this. Now let's create a test. So I'm going to add a Java class. I'm going to name it as login test. And let's add this file into Git. Let me zoom it a bit. So we're going to add some login related tests under this class. Okay, so our immediate goal is to launch the browser. So let's create a test. So let's add a method. Okay, so let's work on a simple method, launch app, and I'm gonna make it as a test with testj annotation at the right test. Now, so we need to set up the browser. So let's work on one browser. Let's start with Chrome. So for setting up the browser, let's use the WebDriver manager dependency. So WebDriver manager dot Chrome driver dot setup. So this will set up the driver for Chrome. Okay, now let's launch the browser. For launching the browser, you have to create an object, a WebDriver object. So let's create a WebDriver object, and let's create an object of Chrome driver and assign it to driver. Okay, so what does it do is it will create a Chrome driver object and it will also launch the browser. Okay, now once the browser is launched, we need to go to a particular URL. So we need to work on an application. So we'll be working on this particular application. Okay, so this is a shopping cart site where you can select some of the products. You can add it to shopping cart, and you can do the shopping. You can search for the products. So we'll be working on certain scenarios in this site. So this is going to be our application and the test for most of our learning program. All right, so let me copy this URL, and I'll be adding this URL in the video description as well. So let's add this URL in a variable. So let's create a string variable base URL, and let's keep the URL here. Okay, this is going to be the application that you're going to use. All right. Now, how do we navigate? So this line will launch the browser. Now, how do we navigate to this particular URL? So for that, we'll be using this object, the driver object, and driver.get. And then here we can specify the URL. So we can say base URL, so that now the browser will navigate into this particular URL. Now let us execute this and let us check it out. I'm gonna run this test and let's see how it works. Now it's launching the browser, and it's navigated into the URL specified, right? Okay, so now let's maximize this browser, and after that we can close it as well, right? So let us do step by step. Let me close this now, and here at the bottom you can see that there is a Chrome instance still there. Okay, so this is like so it's being controlled by automated software. Okay, so I'm gonna exit this, I'm gonna quit this. Okay, because the browser is not completely exited. Okay, it's still there because we didn't close it, right? So now let's maximize the browser. So for that, driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. All right, so this is gonna be maximizing the browser window. Okay, again, let us check it out once again. Let's run it again and let's see. Okay, now it's navigating to the site and see the browser is maximized. Okay, now at the end of the test, we have to close the browser window, right? So because we don't want to create it like this always, right? So let's close it. So how do we do that? So for closing it, there are two options. Either we can close the window, just the window only, or we can completely close the browser program. Okay, so for closing just the window, we'll be using driver.close method. Okay, if you want to completely quit the browser, then you'll be using driver.quit. So this will quit the browser window. Okay, and how do we see that it is quitting? So it's gonna be very quick. Okay, because it will maximize the window, then it will be quitting it. Okay, let's launch it once again and see how it works. Now it's maximizing and the browser is closed. Okay, now we have finished whatever we have planned for the current feature branch. We added the test for launching a browser, right? So now let's commit the changes. I'm gonna go to git commit, and then let's give a commit message. All right, added browser launching code, and we have the changes properly selected, login test and pom.xml. I'm gonna commit it and also push the changes. All right, now let's go to GitHub and let's merge the committed, the pushed branch into master. Let me take github.com. Let's go to our repo, Selenium study, and yeah, I have this compare and pull request option. And from here, from the new feature branch, browser launch to main. Okay, I'm going to create a pull request, and now I'm gonna merge the changes to main branch. So let's merge the code and confirm the merge. Okay, and let's delete the feature branch browser launch. It's not needed anymore. All right, so we are done with this.